This stuff Yerushalmi Demai in the article is edition. It's mamish the top of Nun Amarav on Minadah. In the Vilna, it's about 11 lines from the bottom of Chav Gimel on the base. Also, Vod Minadah. So we're trying to bring a raya to that Allah is B'Shimon Yesh Kini Lakum Etz Sof Kivudei Chumas Umaisros. And the Gemara says, I'm told brought fruit from a non-Jew, fruit which was obviously already severed from the ground. Asked Rabbi Yehuda ben Levi, came to Rabbi Yehuda ben Levi, showed him Menachem Brei. Ibn Levi sent Menachem his son, the Yatkin late, to fix him, to take Shumas Meiser from this fruit. V'Yoav Le Masrei, and Amatoli gave Menachem the Shumas, the Meisers. Yehuda ben Levi and his son Menachem were obviously Levim. Come there, Rabbi ben Levi. I don't know if Rabbi ben Levi is Yehuda ben Levi's brother or not related, but he said to Menachem, Amrei Man Yavida El Avuch. He said, who's going to do this other than your father? Now, this is, he was not happy with what Menachem did. He said, why do you have to take off Trumas and Mises? There's no necessity to take Trumas and Mises off of this produce, which was from the non-Jew. So as he's saying, it's kind of, it's sarcastic. Boy, who's the smartest your father to have done this? Mechavish does Rabbi Shimon Levi. So it seems that Rabbi Shimon Levi contradicts himself on this, because he says that the Chumas Ma'aseh Melacha v'nosel hashevet v'notel damim min hashevet. We said before that he would take he himself said before that he would take you buy fruit from a non-Jew, then you take off Chumas U'Maisros from Mehalocha v'Rabbanan v'nosel l'shevet v'notel damim min hashevet, and you give it to the Levim, but they have to pay you because bets are not chayiv. So here he says that it was the wrong thing to do, right? The himself held you're supposed to do it. So Rabbi Abba's Mina Bar Mina Rabbi Zira Rabbi Simon Lo Marke. Rabbi Simon didn't say it like this. He had a different version of the story. El Miyase, he said, when he came to Menachem came back, coming May Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Yeshua ben Levi met him. Amar Le, he said, now there are many different ways of learning this. I'm going to learn it like this. He said, Ilin Davuch, these belong to your father. Not that Man Chachim, which is kind of the sarcastic comment. But these belong to your father. Why? Because the Taka holds that you take up Shumas and Maisros, and he can give back money. But the Shumas and Maisros are taken off. So, Vikpid. Now, here, the two ways of reading this. One is the way that Reb Chaim learns it, which is not in line with what I just said. He says Vikpid means Menachem got upset. Because even according to this, according to Reb Chaim, Shimon Levi was still criticizing Menachem, and Menachem got upset. But it's not mashed that way so much from the Gemara, because it seems like the Ikpid Rabbi Zira got upset because Rabbi Shimon Levi, in fact, does not hold that you take off Meiser from fruit which was bought from a non-Jew. And here we see, where do we see that? Because Rabbi Acha, Rabbi Tanchum, Barchia, both say Shem and Shimon Levi, Shlo Shein Shein Masim Shlo B'Shus. The three people take a Meiser Shlo B'Din. It's not B'Shus Chachamim. Chachamim don't like it. But one of them is the one which already had this case, uh, the case of Abba and Toli. So Rabbi Zir says to Rabbi Simon, your version of the story is not correct because it's potter from Chumas Maisers. You don't have to take up Chumas from things you bought from a non-Jew. So that's how we see that. Again, this Rebecca B'Tam Rabbi B'Shem Mishum Levi Shoshin Ma'aser Shlo B'Shus the Alisava and Toli says that Tivlo B'Chulin. If your teva which you bought from non-Jew gets mixed on B'Chulin, which is already Meiser, and you take Chumas and Meisers off that tevel from the third place, like we talked about previously, it's no better than Chachamim because Yesh King Agam of Kimidei Chumas and Meisers. Zeshul Kach Mi Piske Shel Kutin. And somebody who buys from Piske Shel Kutin, Piske Shel Kutin is a place where the Kutin, according to Rabbi Shimon Levi, did take off the Chumas and Meisers, therefore your take of Meisers is inappropriate. Rabbi Zir says, those Meisers ain't notal domino shevet. Clearly, you can't take money from the shevet according to this, right? Imamar achu notal domino shevet. If you're going to say he takes money from the shevet, hare birshus taram. So then it was done birshus. So clearly he says, no, it was not birshus, and therefore it's not birshus chachamim. So therefore, this case of Halkech Peres Klushim Min Akum, right? According to which Rabbi Simon said that you have to pay. According to which you take it off and you have to pay, and Rabbi Simon interpreted the Maisa along those lines. Rabbi Zero says it's a mistake. That's how Yerushalmi Levi holds. Evidently, that Taman who Omer was a mistaken tradition named Yerushalmi Levi. Okay, says Rabbi Yechon. Yechon said, Taman Rabbi Lezer. The the rationale of Rabbi Eliezer, who says, the Oser Mishal Kutim Mashal Kutim, in the Parish Betosefta, that when Kutim took off on Kutim, Shumas Maisis, we don't rely on them. It says the Haki Kasino Sham, the Betosefta says, Change Lasu Payers he sold the Mai Achar Ruban. Just like they made the payers of Yisrael the Mai, and you can't take off from one to another. Kach v'chulei, payers Yisrael the Mai, acharuban zeh payers lo chul ben chalamim lo achar. Yeah, well, okay, so let's read the Gemara inside. Okay, so time Rabbi Lezer. Shem she'asu peros. Here it says Eretz Yisrael, but the Pnei Moshe changed it to Yisrael. Demai achar ruban. So it would seem to be that it means that since most of them take of Chumas and Maisros, so therefore ein torminu maisim zeh al zeh. You can't take Chumas and Maisros from one batch of mine, another batch of mine, because maybe one took off and the other didn't take off. Row people do take off. The others will give different shatim here. So the question here is, Kach also pairs kuti vadai acharuban. So too, even though since by Yisrael, even though Rov are Maisrim, we don't take off Chumas and Maisrim from each other precisely because Rov are Maisrim. So certainly the kutim that Rov ain't Maisrim, most of them don't take off Maisrim from each other. So there, ain't Tormin Maisrim lo mizeh al zeh. Well, I don't know if it's a koshkin though. I wrote it on the side. It's a wonderful interpretation. But I'm not too sure about it. Let's see what Chaim says here. Yes, that's what he says too. The rov is being used in two different ways here, which makes it a little bit It's tricky. So he says that. Let's go back to the beginning of this. The time I bless Hashem shows who pairs Israel to my Acha Ruban. So on this it means uh, despite the fact that Rover Meiser. So we're not talking Meiser. The way I said it before, it's Acha Ruban. Since both them take Chumas to Meiser, then we can't say take from one or the other because maybe it's a chiyuv. The way you have to learn it this way is that it's not just because, but also despite. Despite the fact that Rove are taking up Chumas and Maisrus, and therefore you can go beside Ruba, nevertheless you can't be Torah and Maisr Mizel there. Okay, so the again, Shem Shasu Peres Yisrael Demai Achar Ruban. That's why they know Demai not Vadai. But ain't Torah Meisim Zelzeh. It can't be Torah Meisim Zelzeh, despite the fact that Rove Meiser, and therefore you should be able to take Zilbasai Ruba and say, well, they're all probably Potter anyway, so therefore why can't I take one or the other? So too, by Kacha so Peres Kuti, Vadai Acharuban, they definitely made them, they consider them Vadai, that they definitely have Chumas and Mice to take off, because the majority don't. And ain't tamim below masim zemizelzeh. So if by Yisrael, where there's a rove which takes Chumas and Mices, we can say we don't not turn from one or the other. So kosh came by a kuti where it's vadai, we're not touring from one on the other. That doesn't really uh, fly, right? Because rove. So if the rove is vadai, most of them don't take Chumas and Mices. Why would you not take off from one or the other? Okay, by Yisrael, I understand. By Kuti, let me explain that. By Yisrael, I understand. Okay, they said even though Rove take up Chumas and Maisus, nevertheless, because that Gufa, we're going to let you take up Chumas and Maisus one or the other. But by Kuti, if Rove don't take up Chumas and Maisus, so why can't they say they're all the Vadai? Vadai, a P Rove, they're a Vadai. They have a Chumas and Maisus for each other. So I think that it must be that it's the Chachamim said, you know what? If we let you take off from the Kutim, from one and the other, then they're going to come take off by Yisrael from one and the other as well. So therefore, we can't do that. So that's the Kavachomer. It's not really the Kavachomer is because of the Marasayan issue. If by Yisrael we don't let you take off from one and the other because Rov Ameretz Maisrim, and therefore somebody Chayiv, somebody Potter. People's kosher cane, because Marasayan, where it's probably Vadai, they can't take over from one or the other. That's a reason to be able to take over one or the other, but for public policy reasons, people get messed up. They say, 1 second, if from Kutim I can take over one or the other, so I should also be able to do it. By Kutim, where it's probably Vadai, I can take over one or the other. So by it's probably Vadai Meiser, so I could take over one or the other as well. So they're low kai below zeh. They have to say no. They made it like this. They said by Yisrael where ro meiser, nevertheless a meiser mizelzeh. So by Kuti where ro eno meiser a meiser mizelzeh. Again for the public policy purpose. That's how I think you have to learn it. Okay. Now we come to a new sugya. The article in fact has a header here. Otzitz noku b'harei karetz. That Rabbi Boom Barchia says, B'Shem Rabbi Zira, I'm going to go with the Ridbaz here, changes the Girsa to like the Gra. Not sure if Reb Chaim changed Girsa here. Let's read the Rabbi Baz. Rabbi Bun Bar Chia, B'Shem Rabbi Zira said, Otzitz, also also, Suffolk, a flower pot that made of Suffolk. Vatnan, didn't we learn? Otzitz Nokov Mikadesh Bekerem, the perforated flower pot which has seeds in it of grain. It's Mikadesh Bekerem. If you put it into a vineyard, it has to be there because kilaim. She'eno Nokov, if it's not perforated, Eno Mikadesh Bekerem, it's not. It doesn't make the kilei kerem. The Kaddish misafek b'chutzlarts. Okay, so there's the girsa of the yeah. So the chutzlarts is what the Gra puts in, which I don't think that I don't think Reb Chaim puts in. He puts in the Kaddish misafek, but he doesn't have the chutzlarts here. He's saying in the no, he just Reb Chaim doesn't learn Kaddish misafek chutzlarts. But let's do with the Ridbaz. Ridbaz says that Kenga says the Grubber Sabe Kutcher Yerushalmi Tachas Yodi, the Achi B'Shavar Chaim B'Shem Zisa Tzvilei, Datish Eno Nakov, non-perforated flower pot, Avisafik. It's a question. Okay, mean Eno Nakuv, Al Nakuv, you take from a non-perforated flower pot on a perforated flower pot, Havidina Komomina Demai Alavada. It's like taking from Demai and Vada. So then when I ask the part of Nina Atzitz Nakum Makadesh Bekerem, Shena Nakum Eina Makadesh. So the Kasha Lama Eina Nakum Eina Makadesh, Makadesh Misafik. You just said it's a suffix. So the Eina Nakum should be Makadesh Misafik. Mishani answers the Mai B'chutzlaretz. The Sai B'chutzlaretz. The Kaimal on the Kilayim B'chutzlaretz Medivrei Seifrim. So it's not Makadesh Misafik B'chutzlaretz, like I read it before. It's rather Makadesh Misafik. And that it says b'chutzlarts. Shine the Mari b'chutzlarts, or kaimel kilayim b'chutzlarts, they be suffering kilayim b'chutzlarts mutter. So in Echnami, it is a suffix by Otzishein on Akuf. But b'chutzlarts, we're not concerned with that suffix. Chaim leaves out the words mi b'chutzlarts, and it just ends b'gash mi suffix, and there's no answer. Grow puts in the answer b'chutzlarts. Chaim says no, it just ends. Kash misafek. If you're saying Otzitzein Nokov is a suffix, so it should make Kilayin Kilia Karen misafek. Period. Okay. So now we have a new Shakavatara here. It's going on in the Mishnah, where the Mishnah said in the article has a header here. Tarmi Admai Alavadai, which is the last part of the Mishnah. Tarmi Admai Admai Avadai. Truma Yachsu Yitrom Avadai Admai Truma Veloya Lo Tachal Achil to love Truma Meisers. So the Gemara says, "Kamada tema min avadai al demai." Just like you say from vadai and demai, truma. Right? The what you took up is truma, but lo tocha ad sheyotzei truma semaisers. The truma itself has to have truma meiser taken off of it because it's not necessarily definitely truma meiser. Or came in at the demai came. So since we know that one demai and another demai not necessarily the same. One could have two, that's it can't be mafresh from one on the other, like we learned a few moments ago. So therefore, say anything by mafresh from the Mai and the Mai. I should take Trumas Amaisis off on the Trumas Amaisis took off from the Mai, because maybe you're taking from the Chiyuv al Potter, and therefore the Chiyuv has to have its own Trumas Amaisis taken off. So the Gemara answers. Rabun Bar Chiyah b'Shem Shmuel Bar Rabbi Yitzchak says, Zosameris, and here the Gra, the Ridbaz, and the Reb Chaim all turn this around the Gilsa. Zosameres suffix Trumas Meiser shall Demai is kisafik dimua. That doesn't mean it's kisafik dimua. So there, by Meduma, we had a case. The Ridbai says Meduma, we had the case earlier in the fourth paragraph. If you took of Trumas Meisers from your Demai and it fell back into the Demai afterwards, so now it's Meduma, right? Because you have Trumas Meisers mixed up in the Chulin. So what do you do? So the Gemara said, since it's Demai, even though normally you don't rely on the Amoritz, you can go back and ask the Amoritz. If he tells you there was a Meiser from beforehand, so the Shumas Meiser you took off were null and void, so therefore it's all okay. You can just eat it. So here too, we were Makel. We said if you took off from the Demai on Demai, then you're not supposed to. But you don't take off Trumos and Meises and Mokamacher, because B'diavad, since Rov Ameyaretz are Meisim, so therefore we assume that they were common, right? They were both ready Meiser, or but then it would still be as if they're both not Meiser. So after the fact, after you did it, we allow you to assume that they're both in the same status, and therefore we don't make you take off from one or the other. So where there's no Vadai involved, it's Demai on both sides. The mission is about Vadai and Demai and Vadai. Where there's no Vadai involved, we let you get away with it, so to speak. We say, okay, you know what? You don't take off. Again, for the event. And the last words here, Patamina Vadai, the girl also changes it to Patamina Demai, right? So Patamina Demai means since it's Demai, they're a Mako, and they said you don't have to take off the event. After the fact, you can assume that they were of equal stature, and you don't have to do any additional tikkunim, unlike an Mishnah where there was Vada involved. So again, according to the Gra, we read, Sufik Trumas of Meiser Shel Demai, Kisufik Dimua Upotter Min Demai. So it's like Sufik Dimua of the Demai, and it's Potter here as well, again, because we make up the Evan. And that's the end for today.